So today we will probably only cover 20.3. I doubt we'll get to 20.4, but I may go ahead and post it for those of you that like the can I try and work ahead. So when we look at this grid, we see that each box is a foot by a foot. So what would the area of each box be if it's 1 foot by 1 foot?
1 foot. Oh, sorry.
Shahid? Incorrect. Noah? Mm-mm. Shahid?
You mean the whole grid?
No, what would the area of one, if I took one box here, what's its area? Noah? Nope. Shahid? 1 square foot. When we get into area, notice that Shahib had said 1 foot. That's not an area. That's a length. That's a distance. Area deals with how much space something takes up, not how long something is. So you gotta get your brain to switch, and you gotta use the right units. So we look at this square on the bottom. What would be the area of this square? You can either count boxes or you can do length times width. Either way, Seth,
4 square feet.
we get 4 square feet, which I could write 4 SQFT, or a lot of people like this better, 4 feet with the exponent of 2 for 4 feet squared. Don't say 4 foot squared. It's just weird. Some people like to do that. Now what about this triangle? It's not as nice, but it's still pretty nice. You have to be able to explain what you're going to do. Yeah, that hand went back down quickly. Olivia?
Okay, so I don't know how to explain it. The triangle, the tip of it is the same triangleness.
Let me help you out. So this, right?
Yeah.
Where would that fit?
Right by the corner of the other one. Yeah.
Here? And likewise, this could fit here. So really, when we look at its area, what is it? 2 feet squared. Now you can figure that out. Area of a triangle is half the base times the height. Well, half the base would be 1 times the height would be 2, and we'd get 2. Area of a triangle is half the base, this being the base, the bottom of it, times the height. The height of it is always straight from the bottom to the tip. It's got to be 90 degrees. Zach, what do you have for me?
For the circle?
Did you use a calculator?
No. Well,
Liar!
well,
It's in your hand!
no, but I know the process. But,
Visually.
okay.
Is there anything we can do to this circle
Yeah.
to break it up, manipulate, and do like what we did with the triangle?
No.
No.
So,
There is a trick that we can pull with the circle that makes our life way easier, though. Okay, do you know what I'm about to teach?
So,
I keep thinking I need to bring in a pizza, and you guys would like this lesson a lot more.
Yes. So, since the dot is in the middle of like the intersection.
Yeah, it's a little off on the projection up here, but that dot is supposed to be right in the center of those crosshairs.
So, because, so like, from the middle dot thingy up to the top of the circle,
Yeah.
that's the radius.
Right.
And it would be 1 because
Okay.
it's 1 by 1. And
So-
then you need the diameter, so you would just multiply it by 2, because, or you could do like,
Right, yeah, the
Well,
distance across through the center.
and then you multiply it by pi or 3.14 or 22 over 7 or whatever.
Close. You're not quite there. Give me a second, gentlemen. You start working at a pizza shop. A lot of people end up working fast food or food services because it's easy to get jobs in it because lots of people eat food from restaurants, lots of jobs available. You place the orders for the pizza boxes, and you were in a hurry. You were supposed to order square pizza boxes. Now, why do pizzas, even though they're round, come in a square box? Well, okay, sure, kind of say that louder.
Let's put sauce in the corner.
They put sauce in the corners, okay. Seth?
It's an easier fit, and that way you can actually be able to get it out. Because if the box was the same size as the pizza, how are you gonna get the pizza out of the box?
Okay, Noah? Easier to fold up the box. Sheeb?
Wouldn't it be so? Yeah, what Seth had to say, like more room.
A circle.
You can use
is
what you know about
essentially a square with the corners chopped off, right? We can make square pizzas, but it's more difficult. Because you ever watch people make a pizza? The whole way that this works is all they do is rip off dough, put it in a ball, and leave it there for like a couple hours. The yeast does its thing, and it gets real big. Like these dough balls goes from about like the size of smaller than your fist to like big, like the size of your face. And then they mash down the middle a little bit. They spin it in some like corn flour and stuff so that it doesn't stick, and they toss it. And they use centripetal force to stretch the pizza out, and that's why it turns into a circle. But to make a circle box is a whole lot harder. So normally we have square boxes that oftentimes have sauce in the lid or like sauce in the corners or something.
And then the table in the middle.
Now, who wants to be picked on?
Me.
All right,
I like-
James.
No.
James was distracted by his Nintendo and accidentally ordered boxes that are not square, but instead they're slightly shorter but slightly longer, and they're rectangular, kind of like your breadstick boxes or things like that
Or
that
like
you
a
get.
flatbread pizza.
Or like a flatbread box.
I meant
Now
like-
James says, you know what? I didn't order the wrong boxes. I am actually being environmentally friendly. And they said, what do you mean? And James quickly thinks, because he's a smart man, I can fix this problem. It's just going to take a little bit more effort, but not necessarily is anything wrong. So James takes the pizza and he cuts it. And they still don't trust him, like, James, yes, we know, we cut our pizzas. We serve pizza in slices. He says, but what you don't realize, and if you've ever tried to take a pizza or multiple pizzas and fit them all into the same box, is if I pull the slices out and turn one of them around and put them back together,
They're squares.
two triangular slices fit together nicely to make kind of a rectangle. But if I do that with the entire pizza, James's pizza fits in that box just perfectly. And actually, if we change the boxes from squares to rectangles, we would use less cardboard. You can do an area problem where you minimize the amount of resources used, and a rectangular box with the pizza rearranged would be a more efficient use of your cardboard than a square box.
Pizza Hut has
Now, the reason that we don't do that is it would take a lot of extra work to rearrange the pizza like this, and then you would lose some of the presentation value. Like your pepperonis would be all over the place, and your cheese would have already been pulled apart. And so that's why we just keep with square boxes. But we can use this model to figure out how we determine the area of a circle. I feel like I can't teach. Shahid?
R squared times 5.
But do you know why?
Because when you do like surface area, like.
So do you really know how I'm going to use this model to show how we derive that? So can you let me teach? Thanks. Do you know how I'm going to use this model to derive our...
something else that's related to this topic.
Okay, well, let me finish this slide. Keep it in your mind. Write it down if you need to. This distance on the bottom that James's rectangular box has to have is really the length of 4 of these pizza crusts. Well, how many slices did we have in our pizza? 8? 8. So 4 of them is really half my pizza. And the distance around the crust, here's something that if I was here yesterday, I would have taught you guys, but I wasn't, so I'm going to teach you now. Pi, right? P-I, pie. Who's ever thought of pie, P-I-E, when we talk about pies? Apple pie, cherry pie, chocolate, banana, peanut butter pie.
Oh, my mom makes a
Peanut butter chocolate.
a mean peanut butter.
So you guys learned about circumference yesterday, right? Circumference you can also think of as crust. Crust is just the pie dough. So if you need help remembering circumference, crust is pie dough. Circumference is pi times diameter. So, since we know circumference was pi times diameter, circumference is the entire distance around. This distance across the bottom is actually half of your circumference. Because it's got 4 of the crusts of the pizza. It is, and if I let this model show it out, it's right there. My base is half of that circumference. Then what would be the height of the box that James ordered? If I go from the crust back to the tip of my pizza slice, that's really the radius, right? Sorry, they stole it from you. So when I process through my formula, I'm just going to clear this away. My base, if I look at this like a rectangle, my base is actually half the circumference. My height is actually the radius. Now the circumference can be represented by pi times d, or I can replace circumference with 2 times the radius times pi, because 2 times the radius is my diameter. So when I replace that, what's half of 2? 1. So those really cancel each other out. Pi drops down. What's a number times itself? Itself squared. So we really find out that my area formula is pi times radius squared. Now on your notes, you have space right here. I need you really big. Area equals pi times radius squared. If you ever try to use that formula for anything that's not radius, the alarm in your head should go off that, wait a minute, squared has to be for area. I can only plug in my radius, but if you know your diameter, you know your radius really. I can only use radius, and I have to square it. A lot of people get confused because circumference, notice, a pi, an r, and a 2. A 2, an r, and a pi. They use the exact same things, a 2, a pi, and an r, but in a different order that completely changes our answer. So please be careful. Area formula is pi r squared. Circumference formula, I like to just start with pi d, and then if you need to use a radius one, you can. But crust equals pi dough. That's the easy one, so that you don't get confused between area and circumference. Yeah.
Pizza Hut's already doing like the rectangular boxes.
Yeah, but they didn't take a round pizza and rearrange
They
it.
just had like the deep dish pizza.
Yeah, they've changed the size of the pizza. Anyone know what epicenter is? If I say, go to the epicenter of the school. What do you think, Nate? You had one stolen a minute
Well,
ago.
epicenter, I would think like the earthquakes, like it's where the earthquake is actually like happening.
Yeah. So that in an earthquake, it's not where the earthquake's happening, but where the earthquake started. It's where the shift in the plates was. So really epicenter, Noah?
Like it's ground zero sort of. If there was like a bomb or something.
It's, do you have another way to say it?
The very middle.
Yeah, it's the center of activity. Really, the epicenter is the center of all activity, or where everything happens. So like our epicenter for the school, where do you think the epicenter would be?
Library. The locker bay maybe?
Yeah, locker bay, office area. That's where, like, if your parents are coming to pick you up, it's the office. Attendance is the office. Like, the office is pretty much our epicenter area. If you went to, like, a fair or something like that, the epicenter would maybe be, like, the ticket stand, where you get all the tickets. Everybody's got to go to the ticket stand before you go do whatever else. So when we talk about epicenter here, it's where the shift in the tectonic plates happen, where the earthquake originated. And it says the distance of intense shaking for the epicenter of a particular earthquake to the outer edge. Now, if I'm going from the epicenter to the outer edge, is that radius or diameter?
Diameter.
Ooh, from the center to the edge, it's radius. So we could go ahead and draw that somewhere if you want. And that's where the intense shaking is happening.
Couldn't you go like?
You'll feel it further out.
Oh, never
Straight
mind.
line.
Been at this for a little while.
That's more correct.
And actually that arrow shouldn't be there. It should really just be a point on my circle. So then if that's the radius, always start by writing your formula. I'm going to tell you this over and over and over again, and those of you who don't listen to me will come to the mastery and forget the formula. Area is pi r squared. I don't really care how your pi looks as long as it doesn't look like an 11. You can make your pi nice and wavy. You can make your pi straight across. I don't really care as long as you know what it is. Nice.
Because
Gravity works. I'm going to fight, man. Constant battle. So use 3.14 for pi. So I'm going to replace my pi with 3.14. My radius, we already found it was 134. My advice is when you're computing these in a calculator, square your radius first, then multiply by your pi. Now, 2 ways to square on your calculator. 1, the button on the left-hand side. That looks like x squared. What that button does is takes whatever you typed in and squares it. So there is no x involved, actually. So if you hit that, all it will do is give you the squared. The other button is what we call the caret. The caret just says to a power. So if I wanted to do 134 squared, I'd have to do 134 caret and then type a 2. Or 134 hit my x squared button and the little 2 will pop up. So I would like, whatever you use to calculate normally, I'd like you to practice this. So either grab a calculator, pull out your phone if you normally use your phone. Please know that on my tests, I'm only allowing calculators from here out, though. I don't think that's really been an issue, but just to be clear, to get ready for those standardized tests, you need to be familiar with these.
No phone calculators.
When we compute all of this, we should get
Don't say it yet. I want to see if I get it right.
won't say it, I'll write it.
I'll look up.
Think about what your radius was. Your radius was over 100 miles.
Oh wow, that's a long way.
Oh, I pressed X. What did I do?
Your iPhone works differently.
What did I
So if you're going to use an iPhone, you have to figure out how to make it work.
I pressed the X2 button and.
Did you type it all in one strand?
Yeah.
I bet you it did your multiplication before it did your squared.
Do 134
Then square it.
squared, and then press equal, and then multiply it by.
So Seth, again, why I said my advice is square your 134 first, then multiply by the 3.14. But as always, you're not really listening.
So that'd be a pretty bad earthquake.
Yeah, it would not be a good one.
Well, no earthquakes are
Where
really
it looks like, where does it?
We tried to figure out where this was
Looks like
one
it's
time.
California or something.
Mexico?
No, there's too much. I think this is fake. Like I think they just made a
Maybe
fake
it's
map.
Italy.
You know the
yeah.
peninsula in California?
Try this one.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. It looks like
We straight up give you the radius as 3.2. Again, just to practice, can I take this my calculator? Can I do this correctly? Now notice it says leave your answer in terms of pi. So that means my pi, I'm not going to do anything with it. The only thing I have to do is square my radius. When I square my radius, what do we get when we do 3.2 squared?
10.24.
10.24. So really my area is just, we always write the number first. Sorry, 10.24 pi. No. We leave our answer in terms of pi. Do not replace pi with a number. Use it as pi, but then I still need a label. 10.24 pi meters squared. When it says leave your answer in terms of pi, you are using pi as a value. Like, almost like a variable, but we know what pi is.
Not really.
Oh, we totally know what pi is. We don't know where it ends. Speaking of which, pi has a very finite definition. It's an infinite decimal, but its definition is very rigid. How do I get pi?
Just,
Baylor?
Divide the circumference by the diameter.
Circumference by diameter, and if that doesn't just come to your head real fast, write it down again. Pi is an endless decimal, but any perfect circle, if I take the circumference and I divide it by the diameter, I will get pi. Come out.
So why is pi so special? I mean, like, there's a bunch
Because
of
it's the ratio of a perfect circle.
why is it called pi?
It's Greek.
Just like any other like.
So they use a lot of Greek letters just to hold the place of something. Go ahead.
Delta and mu, for example.
Yeah, like delta means the change in something. Or there's like Avogadro's constant they use a letter for. So it's just because it's the Greek alphabet and it's not, I mean, it's been around for like ever. So they've had it to work with. They've easily been able to say, oh, you know pi? Oh, yes, the ratio of circumference to diameter, approximated by 3.14.
This is a little off topic, but isn't mean like mu population mean or something?
I forget. I haven't worked with mu in a while. So be ready that if I ask you on a test, how do you get pi, or how can you find pi, or what is pi? It's just circumference divided by diameter. It's just the ratio. What that really tells you, though, in practical application, was if you had like a crater, and there's a question like this, has been on your homework and will be on your test, and you know the distance across it, say it was like 20 yards or something like that, you could approximate the distance around it by just tripling. And you could say approximately it'll be about 60 yards. That makes sense of why we care about that. It's just over 3, so we know we could about triple the diameter to find the distance around. Now this is really interesting. What is the value of the radius when numerically, because they can't be equal, you can't have a circumference and an area be equal. Why? Why can't we actually have a circumference and an area be technically equal? Right? Because they're very specific to say the same numerical value. They don't say equal. They say the same numerical value. Pranav?
It's because pi is only the stuff around it.
Both of them use pi.
I know, but this, like, okay, so the circumference is like the stuff around it, right? But then the circle
Okay,
inside the circle.
based on the fact that you use stuff, I'm going to move on. Right? You need some good vocab. So you're on the right track, but don't use a word like stuff in math. That's like lamp answer. Noah?
The circumference is measured in length, right? And the area
Keep going.
is a area.
Yeah, area is space,
Square.
right? Space that something takes up. Guys, so circumference and area can never technically be equal because they're not equal values. One is a length value and one is an area, a space value, how much like paint it takes like to spread out, not how much length of string it takes. Okay, string kind of has an area, but it's really just gotten a length. This carpet has area. It's flat. It takes up space. So we need to set these equal, but just so that they have the same numerical value. So we'll forget about units. For a moment, we'll forget about units. So we want area to equal circumference. Well, area is pi times radius squared, and circumference is pi times the diameter, but I don't want to use diameter since I'm using radius over here. So instead of using diameter, let's just use 2r. What could I do to both sides to start getting rid of things? Right?
Never mind. I'm
You might
doubting
be
myself
on it.
too much.
Is that?
Could combine like terms.
Ooh,
No.
there are no like terms. Zach?
Pi and pi cancel each other out.
Ah, if I have a pi on both sides.
That's what I was gonna say.
And would r and r cancel each other yet?
Ooh, close. So then I have r squared is equal to 2r. If I try to do what you're saying and have r and r cancel each other out, r squared divided by r, I still get r, but this r cancels out.
So
When your radius is 2, you will actually find that your area and your circumference both come out to be the same value. Not equal, but they're the same number. Because area is pi times radius squared. Well, if my radius is 2, that'd be pi times 2 squared, which would be 4 pi. Circumference is 2 times the radius times pi. Well, 2 times 2 times pi is just 4 pi. So when your radius is 2, area and circumference will be equal, quote unquote, but they're not actually equal, they're just the same numerical value. Because one would be, say, like inches squared, and the other would just be like inches. So if I gave you a question on the test that said, show how we can make the area and circumference have the same values, you'd want to set up their formulas equal to each other and solve down till you get what r is. Cool? Oh, I already did that.
I prefer p though.
Alright, we gotta move quick now. Hurricane. The eye of the hurricane we really care about because meteorologists will use this to help tell people how long they have that they can go outside safely. So we're told that the eye of a hurricane is 30 miles in diameter. Well, if my diameter is 30, I have not barely used cards today. Grace, what's my radius then? 15. So we set up area equals pi times radius squared. Always start by writing out the formula, then fill in your values. Again, I'm going to square 15 first and then multiply it by my 3.14. And we get that the area of this hurricane is what do you got, Sheeb? 706.5 squared miles. So we get 706 and a half square miles. Questions, comments, concerns? Bubble netting is a very interesting strategy used by humpback whales. It scares the other fish into thinking there are other creatures, and it kind of chases them. So, if the ring of bubbles is 100 feet wide, if the ring of bubbles is 100 feet wide, what is the area that covers. If the ring of bubbles is 100 feet wide, well, if that's 100 feet wide for the ring, what really is that giving me? Olivia? You're already calculating
The diameter.
the diameter. So if this is the diameter, that means that radius is 50, and then we can work it from there. What do we get? Haley?
7,850 feet squared.
Questions? This making sense?
Yeah.
Now, they will try to trick you and give you only your diameter, or sometimes they will give you your circumference. If they give you the circumference, you have to work backwards to find the radius and then find the area.
So you have to divide by pi and then divide by 2?
Yeah, essentially. Or you can do crop circles. Whether or not you can.
What are you doing here?
Pop up all over the place.
Making a crop circle.
They come and go.
But we're making a crop circle.
So you would normally do
Uh-oh.
harvested, or at least with a crop that maybe isn't going to be harvested, or it depends on the situation. You use boards to flatten out the crops, and you normally walk in one direction so that they all fold down the same way, so it like looks visually.
But
Or
like,
aliens come down with space shuttles and use
but
magnetic
how,
waves.
like,
And
say you do that, like, it's just like a prank. How does, like, do you just, like, walk in between the corn stalks?
no, you flatten them down. So you
But
would
the one
use.
that show, like, a path from where you were?
You are walking essentially behind the board that's flattening. So how they showed it is not how most people make a crop circle. You can Google this. You would have a board with a rope on each side, and you would lift it up with your foot and stamp down on the crops. Lift it up, push it forward on crops, stamp it down. So they'll fold in front of you.
No,
It
what
is
I
a lot of
mean
work.
is, like, say you're in the middle of a field. How do you get to make it show, like, it doesn't look like
Oh, you can
just-
walk through a field without, like, as long as you don't knock down crops while you go, you can walk through
You could, like,
crops.
just go in between the corn stalks?
Yeah, they're not super tight together. So let's compare. We have my bigger circle here is twice the distance across as my smaller circle. Now you guys make a prediction. When we go to calculate the area of both of these, do you think the area of my bigger circle will be twice the area of my smaller?
No.
Or do you think it'll be more than twice? Now, because we're running out of time, I will go ahead and give this to you. Once we do the computations, this comes out to be 1,600 pi feet squared, because I'm going to leave these in terms of pi just to compare. This comes out to be 400 pi feet squared. So what is the actual multiplication between the areas? 4. Because if I double my radius, I'm actually quadrupling my area. So on the got it, what do you think will happen if we triple the area? Or sorry, triple the radius? Yeah? Not 6. This squared. So whatever's happening to the radius, you square it, and you'll have 9 times the area. All right, have a good day, guys.